So the brand new gear and exotics were just revealed in the Year 6 Season 1 patch notes. And the question is, did the devs deliver exactly what we need, or did they swing and miss again? Well,
entering dog zone.
So we're currently in Year 5, Season 3, which is going to be the final season of this year. And there's still about 6 weeks left in it. And that's when we'll officially break into Year 6, Season 1. And the devs just delivered the PTS Patch Notes, revealing what is all going to come in this following season. And this is a player test server only for PC players. And you can preload now, but it will start tomorrow, Friday, April 26th, and end on Monday, April 29th, basically Sunday night. So with every season, we get a new brand set, a new gear set, some named weapons, sometimes some new weapon variants, some named chest and backpack pieces, and typically 3 exotics. So let's start off with the brand set. So this is called Zuidoka. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. So 1 piece equipped gives us 15% magazine size, 2 pieces gives us 20% rifle damage, and 3 pieces equipped is 30% weapon handling. So let's just hold up right there because I'm already impressed, I gotta say. So we've been saying now, I think for the entire duration of Season 3 that rifles are extremely underwhelming in the Division 2 right now. And it's a big shame because they used to be king. And so to see him at this state in the game is somewhat disappointing. I mean, the M1A Classic is barely usable, where you can get so much more out of an assault rifle. And basically, the 1886 is the best rifle in the game, except it acts more like a sniper, and that's basically how we're using it, to one-shot kill people. And everything else just feels so much underwhelming or underpowered. And when you do use a rifle, you realize that there's not a lot you can do to build around the rifle. I mean, you got your standard old school meta with your contractor's gloves and foxes and all of that. And then the chest piece talents are not really lining up really well with rifles. I mean, rifles don't do really good with obliterate. So it leaves you basically with like focus or glass cannon for the most part. There's other ones too, but still. So my point is, I'm glad to see that there's some dedication to rifles here because these need to be sitting just shy of what snipers are doing. As a matter of fact, they need to be performing how our SVDs are performing. That being said, this is really cool and isn't just for rifles. That 15% mag size is handy for all sorts of weapons. Think about what you can do with your St. Elmos, your Ouroboros, any of your LMGs. 15% mag size is a nice thing to have. And then of course you got your 20% rifle damage, that's straight up. And then 3 pieces for 30% weapon handling. Dear Lordy Lord, I gotta say, that is amazing. I'm so happy to see that. So recently I've been playing into Overlord's new changes. So Overlord is the other rifle brand set that has the named Fox's Prayers that go with it, those knee pads. And so I've been running 3 pieces of that for the 30% weapon handling. And when you combine that with Hot Shots, 2 pieces, you got 60% weapon handling. And maybe there's a work in here where we can try to get this 3-piece set and get maybe 90% weapon handling. That would be insane. Either way, we'll see. Very impressive. Weapon handling is no joke in this game. So let's look at the named gear pieces. So named chest is the Bober talent, and it comes with perfect entrench, which is really underutilized, I gotta say. So if you are below 30% armor, headshots from cover repair 30% of your armor. Cooldown is 2 seconds. So, I mean, I guess that is better. It is. It was 20. And the cooldown is only 2 seconds. That's a big deal. I always thought it was kind of annoying for Perfect Entrench to have a cooldown, I gotta say, though. But 2 seconds isn't a thing. Named gloves are the Eagle's Grasp with the perfect attribute of 15% weapon handling. Yes, please, as a matter of fact. That is amazing. I'm assuming it's going to be like the contractor's glove, so it's going to be down in the secondary attribute slot, leaving you only with 1 attribute. But I will take 15% weapon handling, basically twice the amount you can get with a standard attribute. That's a huge deal. I mean, right there, if you run 3 pieces with those gloves, you're at 45% weapon handling. I'm really liking that, I gotta say. Wait, Future Tux here. What are these named gloves? The Eagle's Grasp, due to the exotic gloves that we recently got. We're barely running those, if at all, now. Does that make them fall even deeper into our stash space? Just by running the Eagle's Grasp alone, you're gonna get increased mag size by 15% and 15% weapon handling, plus an additional attribute. So which is better, the Eagle's Grasp or those rugged gauntlets. Remember, there's a lot to weapon handling, including weapon sway, which is helpful at taking some of those long shots, especially that opening kill shot with the sniper. But it also includes reload speed, weapon swap, which the devs finally fixed. I thought weapon swapping just sucked in the Division 2 and was slow, but it turns out it was broken the whole time. And so now if you notice your weapon swapping with weapon handling has increased, it does feel pretty good. And then you have some recoil control through stability as well as accuracy for closing in on shots. So what I don't know about this new brand set, and we'll see here when the PTS opens, is will it come with a red core or an armor core or even a skill tier? My guess is it'll probably come with a weapon damage core, but I wouldn't be mad at it if it came with an armor core. Breaking Point is the new gear set. So 2 pieces equipped gives 25% rifle damage and 25% MMR damage. Right off the cuff, I gotta say that's excellent. So we're finally getting a rifle orientated gear set, something we've been asking for oh god, man, since year 4 season 11 when they dropped Hot Shot. So one of the requests that we made directly to the devs, they had joined us on a live stream. We said, hey, can we get Hot Shot to also apply to rifles? We think we'll get more mileage out of it if so. And they didn't make that change back then, but it looks like they're bringing it to us now, and I'll take it. I hope people aren't seeing this just as a sniper rifle set, but more as a rifle set that also applies to some sniper rifles. And it is important, again, because build diversity. So if this is just strictly to a single weapon, it becomes very limited and more of a stash space hog than anything else. Like Striker, for example, applies to all sorts of different weapons: SMGs, assault rifles, LMGs. In theory, we want all of our gear sets to work like that. So 3 pieces equipped gives us 30% headshot damage and 15% weapon handling. That's great. However, it is really close to what Hot Shot already is. So it would be nice to see a little bit more differentiation here. The talent is called On Point. So landing a shot using a rifle or MMR grants a stack. Reloading will grant 2% weapon handling and 2% weapon damage per stack for 10 seconds. So all you gotta do is land shots, okay? And then reloading gives us damage and handling. So no stacks will be required while the bonuses are active. The timer running out will refill your magazine. Oh, I love auto reloads. Switching weapons while the bonuses are active will stop the effect, so you'll lose your handling and you'll lose your damage, but you're gonna refill your magazine. Switching weapons while the bonuses are not active will remove all stacks and refill your magazine. So no matter what, you're refilling your magazine unless you don't have any stacks, it looks like. So you're gonna have to have either the timer active or stacks, but you can't just swap weapons and get an auto reload. Does that make sense? So the chest and backpack will come with a talent, and the chest one is called Point of No Return. It's an increase on point bonus timer for 10 to 15 seconds. I mean, that's a little bit helpful. Yeah, some more damage longer by 5 seconds. I don't know if that's gonna be a game changer or not. More importantly, is it gonna be enough to entice you away from whatever chest talents that we already have for rifles? Probably not, because you're gonna be looking for some more damage, maybe even some headhunter type damage, which is gonna be way more appealing than more damage for 5 seconds. So I think I would like to see something a little bit more aggressive on the chest, and mostly because we need more talents in the chest department, and gear sets are a great opportunity to add something to the pool that also limit the scope of that talent so that it doesn't get overly abused on some other variation outside of what the devs see at this stage. Backpack bonus. The talent is called Point of Honor, so increase on point weapon damage bonus from 2 to 3%. That's just damage, not handling. I think it'd be a good idea to throw handling into that mix, but either way, you're gonna get 1% more weapon damage there. The max stack is 10. That's 30% more damage. The question is it amplified damage? It'll be good to know that, but 30% is a good number. The downside is that you have to rebuild those stacks. Now for rifles, that won't be that big of a deal because they tend to have the RPM to go along with it. But for snipers, the question is how much of that damage can you use inside 10 seconds? Probably not very much. And then the question goes back to, well, how many stacks can you build? How long is it going to take you to get to max stacks? And there's no actual max stacks here, and the max stacks is going to be relative to your magazine size. So for example, on snipers, some of our best snipers have 12 rounds in the mag, so that'll give you 24 to 36% weapon damage and 24% handling, assuming you have all of your stacks when you reload. But once you reload, it's gonna come down to rate of fire, isn't it? Because the timer starts and you're only gonna have 10 seconds, potentially 15 if you're running the chest. So for snipers, that's gonna be tough. I gotta say. But for rifles that are constantly cycling their mag, that'll be interesting. But even if the snipers don't take advantage of the potential weapon damage, the auto refill is a big deal alone for snipers. And snipers can stand on their own when it comes to damage. So I'm not too worried about the damage for snipers anyways. But if you're a chain killing beast, the only thing that stops you from chain killing is your reloads. So this is going to keep you going. So I think this might be an answer to that. So that being said, in order for the Point of Honor backpack to hold its own and to be interesting for both rifles and MMRs, I think at least it needs to have the increase on weapon handling as well as weapon damage. And if I was the devs, I would go ahead and actually meld together Point of Honor and Point of No Return. So put the extra 5 seconds with the backpack and come up with something a little bit more interesting for the chest bonus. And something we desperately need in the chest department is bonus armor. We need something that gives us bonus armor on the chest. This could be that opportunity. Next are the new exotic knee pads called Acosta's knee pads. So the talent is called Escape Plan. So vaulting from top of an object gives 10% movement speed for 3 seconds. So basically jump over something. After not moving for 5 seconds, receive 20% movement speed for 5 seconds. So that'll help you with your cover to cover. When affected by a status effect, a 10% movement speed is granted for 5 seconds. Max movement speed bonus is 20%. The bonuses do not stack with movement speed bonuses from other sources. So this is not going to work with your Lady Death, is what it's saying there. And then negative 50% movement impairment penalty from status effects. I believe that last bullet point is saying that if you do take a status effect like fire or bleed that tend to slow you down, you will be moving faster than without the knee pads. This is interesting. This is actually something that I've been asking for in one way or the other. I was saying in some feedback to last season and even the season before that it'd be interesting to see in the Division 2 some more abilities, things like this. And we did call out the Lady Death as one of those items. That's something that gives our character more juice to his capabilities, such as moving faster or less body flinch from incoming damage so that we can be more accurate while we're shooting, things like that. So I do like that they've brought this in here. Movement speed is nice. I've always felt our character is slow, and I do want to see my character move faster. That being said, this is a lot like the Ninja Bike knee pads from the parkour perspective, which has never really been that helpful. But it's only one of several elements here. It's not restricted to that, so okay, maybe. When affected by a status effect, getting the additional movement speed is so conditional, I wouldn't want to take an exotic slot just for that. So there's that. But after not moving for 5 seconds, receive a 20% movement speed buff isn't the worst thing there. I think that's the best of the three, to be honest with you. So if you're playing from cover, rifles and marksmans, this would come in handy, especially if you're moving from cover to cover. But is that enough? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we're going to need more here. And what I don't like to see is an exotic that doesn't give any other application to damage or defense. And so you can look at movement speed as an offense or defensive application. It can go either way, but our builds, especially with endgame difficulty, is really sensitive to every single attribute and gear slot we have on the build. So to have something that only gives us movement speed is just not going to cut it. I think we're going to need some sort of damage or defensive application with this as well. I mean, even the Ninja Bike knee pads give us bonus armor. So I would take bonus armor with this, or some sort of weapon damage stacking like the Sawyer's knee pads. So that would coincide nicely with the after not moving for 5 seconds thing. So, I mean, you could almost get rid of everything else and say after not moving for 5 seconds, receive 20% movement speed for 5 seconds plus 20% amplified damage for 5 seconds or something like that. And I think that would be fair because it's a short burst of amplified damage and movement speed, and it requires you to stay in cover. So it's not a constant thing that can be overly used or abused. That's something I'd like the devs to consider at this stage. Otherwise, if they do feel really strongly about keeping this tightly locked to abilities only, then I think maybe extending the timer of effect, because 5 seconds isn't very long, maybe 10 seconds would be nice, or increasing the movement speed from 20 to maybe even 40%. Get more aggressive with it so it feels really exciting. more exotic. New weapons and talents. So we got a new exotic shotgun, and it's going to be called the Overlord. It doesn't say what type of shotgun it is here, so we'll have to see in the PTS, but my guess is it's going to be the Spaz, but we'll see. But it could also be based off of the Super 90. Fingers crossed, because the Super 90 is nice. Okay, the talent is called Capitulate. Hitting an enemy will apply a stack of negative 1.5% movement speed for each pellet hit for 5 seconds. So shooting again will reapply the stacks. So you can be slowing that target down. So weapon stats and mods. So optic slot, 15% critical hit damage. We got magazine slot, giving us more reload speed, good. Underbarrel slot, weapon stability. I mean, I do like weapon stability there, but weapon handling would be better on a shotgun so that we could also get reload speed there because they tend to have a bad reload speed. So this is interesting. For one, shotguns are really strong on their own, depending on what the shotgun is, of course. But for example, if it's something like the M870, I mean, I use the named version that gives you faster reloading speed and doesn't even give you any damage or anything else, and I can still one-shot chain kill enemies with it. The question is, depending on the variant, do we really need or want to slow the enemies down? And if so, then what? I like to use shotguns with the Headhunter talent a lot, and so if you're wasting a shot on the body, then that could potentially cancel out your Headhunter buff. You can go one-shot headshot kill to the next. I find that a really efficient way to use shotguns, but it's not the only way. You can build into crits. And if you do go into crits, you tend to go more center mass. And if you're going center mass, do you need to slow the enemies down? No, I don't think you do. So this would be a special exotic weapon used for niche cases, special cases like end bosses, or when you need to escape or hold an enemy still for an ally to one-shot kill. That could be helpful. So imagine if you're running a niche play and you're a speedrunner and you needed to do a one-shot kill on a boss, then you can use this shotgun to slow him down for a second while the other guy nails him in the head. However, that could cancel out the Achilles pulse, which is often used in that case, and you could just as easily riot foam that enemy. So the movement speed thing is not a bad thing, but at this point in time, I'm having trouble seeing its application. And moreover, an application that would entice you to use it over a damage talent or even a reload speed talent. Right now, Pummel is one of the best shotgun talents in the game. This needs to compete with that, or at least differentiate itself enough and have a application outside of some super niche play to maintain its relevance. Otherwise, it's just going to be another exotic that we don't use. And to be honest with you, it's kind of looking like that right now. And I just want to add that the Scorpio is an exotic shotgun, right? And technically, doesn't it do the same thing? Doesn't it technically slow the enemy down by disorientating them and shocking them? Not many people know this, but it's also pellet based. The more pellets that land on that enemy, then the greater that effect. But the Scorpio also gives you additional damage as you get into the back end of its effect. So would you choose this shotgun over the Scorpio? Named weapons and talents. So we got Brazen, which is a weapon talent. So this is going to receive 1% amplified damage on the next shot with the weapon for each pellet that hits the target if at least 6 pellets hit. So shotgun talent. All right. Amplified damage. Cool. You're going to get stronger and stronger, and it doesn't look like there's a cap. So maybe you can start one-tapping enemies with chest shots here. But I wonder what happens when you don't hit at least 6 pellets. Does it cancel it all out? Does it continue to stack? We'll see. The Thorn Spaz 12 is going to have the talent called the Perfect Brazen. Now, receive 1% amplified damage on the next shot with the weapon for each pellet that this hits, if at least 4 pellets hit. So, okay. The downside is that it's the Spaz 12. Does anybody actually like that shotgun? It's kind of difficult to use. Very slow rate of fire. Like Glue, the Super 90. Talent, Perfect Brazen. Now this one's for me. So receive 1% amplified damage on the next shot with the weapon for each pellet that this hits on that target if at least 4 pellets hit. So this is actually pretty good because the Super 90 has a tight spread and has a decent optimal range as well, better than most. This will be an interesting one to try. Balancing and rework. So we see the Diamondback Exotic Rifle. So increased damage from 329 to 342. Okay, that's good. We'll take that. Magazine size expanded from 5 to 6. We'll also take that. And then the talent is Agonizing Bite. So Diamondback randomly marks an enemy within 20 meters. That's new. If no enemies are within 20 meters, it marks the closest enemy to you. So it looks like it will reach beyond 20 meters, if necessary. So hitting that enemy consumes the mark, guaranteeing a critical hit and amplifying damage of that hit by 20%. After hitting the mark, all shots fired are guaranteed crits for 5 seconds. And then a new enemy is marked. So it looks like with the talent, what they're addressing is limiting the randomness of the marked targets. So it had the possibility to sometimes select a target that wasn't in range or even in view. But since they're limiting the scope to 20 meters, if there is an enemy within 20 meters, then it'll increase the likeliness of that enemy being in your field of view. And then we're getting more damage and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think that's enough. I think the randomly marked thing needs a whole new look. There's more to it than that though. So it's never really gone well in the Division 2 when a talent auto selects a target for you. It can get you in trouble. So there are times when you're being threatened by an enemy in your face, and that's when you need the damage most. And when it selects a target beyond him, maybe 10 meters out, then you're sitting here fighting this enemy without that damage, and then you're having to reload to try to get him. Then you might as well just be raw dogging him without the damage at that time because of all the time it's taking you to try to get him. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of circumstances out there that you could list, and where randomly selecting targets is not the best idea. What you would want it to say is, instead of randomly, it should be saying the enemy closest to you, which even then is not always your priority target, because maybe the enemy beyond him is a rusher on approach. So the Diamondback, although it looks really cool, has never really been a fan favorite. And that's because it's extremely difficult to use. It's the exotic version of the 1886, and I love the 1886, one of my favorite weapons in the game. And I figured out over time that the non-exotic variant 1886 is better than the named Virginian 1886 and the exotic version, the Diamondback. And that's because, well, there's none of that nonsense, but because it's strong enough to one-shot kill an enemy on the right build. And that build benefits from Headhunter and allows you to chain kill elites with that. And now you can even run Determined and get those chain kills square on the body. So that means if you got 5 rounds in the mag, you got 5 kills in the mag with an 1886. Now the Diamondback wasn't one-shot chain killing without Headhunter. And so it's been taking you multiple rounds to kill that enemy, even with the Virginian and Perfect Boomerang. And when you only have 5 rounds in the mag, you just can't afford that. You need them to be one-shot kills. 2 shots max. And there's likely going to be misses in there as well, so that's also a factor. And so we've created Diamondback builds, but the best Diamondback build includes the Headhunter chest talent. And when you include the Headhunter chest talent, its damage basically overrides everything else on the build once it's activated, making all of the perks from the Diamondback basically pointless, because it's really Headhunter doing all the work, where you could run Preservation or Determined or even Lucky Shot, all which would have more continued application after you started your chain kill abilities, where damage is something that you no longer need because you're already one-shot killing enemies. So what is more damage going to do for you at that stage? Well, nothing. So yeah, I say back to the drawing board with the Diamondback. This is not enough. This is going to be a waste. It's still going to sit in the stash. Worst off, it looks like this is our 3rd exotic, and that doesn't make me happy. It feels like we're sort of getting the shaft here. So in most seasons, we get 3 exotics, if not 4. So there have been times where we get 4 exotics. And on top of that, we used to get a new skill each season once we completed the manhunt target, which they've cut that out of the equation. So for us to get 2 new exotics and 1 reworked exotic, I don't know if that's the right model. I think the rework needs to be in there anyways. As a matter of fact, I've been saying as part of my feedback to Project Resolve is that they overlooked all of the exotics that needed reworks. So they reworked the brand sets, they overlooked most talents in the game, and completely ignored exotics. And I don't feel like exotics should be super dusty in our stash space. I mean, I'm not saying we have to use every exotic and every exotic's got to be a game changer or whatever, but we have so many exotics that are really bad, in very bad condition. And because addressing each one of these is limited in scope, it wouldn't have broad, complicated impacts that could potentially create overly powered agents or just more bugs. So I think it's a good opportunity while we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for the DLC to just go ahead and rework all the exotics that need it. There's a handful of them, and I feel like it isn't the largest project in the world to do that. It's not like it's a whole nother Project Resolve. It would be, I think, a small project and something that would please the player base. But at this stage, I gotta say, I'm a little bit worried in the exotic department. For the gear, I feel really great about, actually super happy about it. But for the exotics, I am super worried. I'm looking at potentially 3 more exotics that might go directly to the stash space. So you can take this all for a grain of salt, as this is the PTS and they're looking for feedback so that they can drive those changes into these before they launch. And we do have 6 weeks left in the season, so they would have plenty of time to process that feedback in theory. But I have to say, as someone who's been covering the Division 2 for several years now and have been playing this game even longer, I got to tell you that from my experience, most of the feedback doesn't actually get applied to the launch versions of what we see from the PTS, unless it's a glaring bug. But even then, many of the bugs are actually deployed and fixed later. I mean, remember Heartbreaker and how overly powered it was? Yeah, that was tested in the PTS by PC players, and it got released, and then several patches later got reversed as it was determined that it was way overpowered and not correctly applying the amplified damage. There's 1,000 more additional cases. So really, this is our chance. Looking at the timing in which we are receiving this PTS, which is much earlier than we normally do, I gotta say, maybe the devs are actually attempting to process our feedback and drive it back into the initial release. Maybe we're seeing a little bit more proactiveness here. Maybe, just maybe. So if that is the case, then I guess now is our chance. Please comment below, drive your feedback here. If you see somebody else's comment that aligns with yours, add to it, like it, build it up. Make sure the devs see your comments. And if you agree with some of my feedback that I've provided, go ahead and say so down below too. We need the devs to hear us on this one. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido, and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.